But yeah, it would be insane. Like you'd have to
Sorry,
basically ask.
I didn't realize it was going to start right now.
Oh, no worries.
No, but I could cut it off or whatever. Which is good. No, I like these conversations, dude. These are smart, and I think the Gemini. Okay, did
Mm.
you signed up for that pro stuff, right?
Yeah.
I kind of want to test out those features as well. That's why I was like, let's chop up a pod and see if we could chop up a pod on tonight. If I could at least hold you for an hour, and I'll chop it up and we'll make a video. We'll link it for our Zeely Quest for Night Force, etc. We'll get some clout, right?
Yep.
And
That's what I was going to do tonight anyway. So that's cool.
so yeah, dude, we'll smash two. We'll both help each other out, right? We're both agility, both builders clubs. We're technically both professionals in the industry. I work for a Bitcoin mining facility. You work for your systems operator, right? Your
Yep.
systems operator or operation?
Systems engineer.
Systems engineer. My bad. Okay, there we go. All these titles, I never know which was what, dude. To be honest, I like to call
I hear
myself
you.
a game developer. I think no matter what, at the end of the day, that's the one title I want to like hold. Be proud of because that's kind of what got me here. So I kind of like just, and that's where we bond over as well. Gaming as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
And my
like
bro,
for sure the pastime.
and my brother, dude, as well. He's actually an indie dev. He's actually gotten into game dev a lot more recently. He's published like 2 titles on Steam already. And he's trying to like I guess find his way in the game, kind of that creative sphere. So now he's in messing with Unity, right? So we've been discussing like ways how we're gonna start collaborating, right? So I think the basic we're just trying to get down is just a simple GitHub, basic Unity project open. We
Okay.
just get, I think we just get that going. I think that's just a way to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
But yeah, dude, he's into game dev, and I'm trying to get my son into it as well. I've been teaching him some AI stuff. To this past weekend, it was kind of more about digital art. So I have like this little Wacom tablet, and I showed him I have this computer that I took from work, and it's a Linux. I installed in Linux on it, Ubuntu, and I put like some of my bunch of software that I use. Like Krita is a drawing one, so I gave him this tablet, and like he just started just practicing drawing. I started showing him like different file formats, and it's crazy to see them take off with it. It's like, dude, I didn't start messing with this stuff until I was like 20. So like the fact that he's 11 now messing with it, that's so dope.
Yeah, it really is. My so my uncle, he's actually a big time coder in Pittsburgh. I can't remember what he specifically does or what company even. But he got his son into it at like 6 years old. It was insane.
Damn, that's insane to get them to get a kid at least that focused on trying to, I guess, identify that stuff. Like Scratch is a pretty good software, from what I've been looking at.
Yep, I've heard that's pretty good as well.
Oh, how old is your oldest?
16. He did some Scratch. I
Damn,
think there was
16,
there was
bro.
another one that he did too at one point.
That's cool though. That's awesome, dude. Is he into coding as well?
Not these days.
Hmm.
He's actually his PC's broken, so he hasn't really been using it as much.
Hmm. Okay, cool. Shit. Yeah. That's pretty dope though. Shoot. So some of those projects you were wanting to like talk about. So you got that one. That's something you may want to bring up with one of the meetings I think we have. I think I don't know it's Nick or I think it's Stevon. Stevon. I don't know why I keep saying Stevon. Someone at my job is called Stevon or Stefan, and I pronounce things kind of wrong, just to help remember. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It's a little autistic trait of mine. I'm sorry, but that's dope, bro. What else have you been thinking about that custom server one and that one as well, right? And we were discussing that earlier about the what games to do. Or are you thinking more towards the tournament bot?
Honestly, I'm leaning towards the term bot, I think. Um, out of all my ideas so far. The other idea, I honestly like. I'm just getting hung up on this whole integration piece. In order to get onboard people, I just think taking current SQL data and being able to roll it up and translate it correctly to then run like not only the proof server but also it's almost like a load balancer, if you will, is like what my brain is telling me it would almost operate as. So you'd spin up like your normal VM, spin up your Linux, install your proof server stuff, but it's also like it's there's also within that roll up like an added SDK where it operates as a integration piece that also like takes current data and then uh, almost like a hose and sprays it out the other end as a Zk.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. What's a? Can you explain the load balancer to me?
So you have like in networking terms, it has its normal resources as well, where it has some hardware and it'll balance between like either the hardware layer where you're moving users to either like certain data or server that they need access to. Same principle for even applications at that level.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. So the load balancer somehow it's able to manage the load I get based off users, and then it
Yeah,
require and then it, I guess it's virtual hardware, I suppose, right? For it to
it can be either or. So it could be physical hardware or it can be virtual hardware.
sweet. Okay. So the load balancer is that like after the firewall or is that before?
So that would be
Okay.
usually after the firewall.
Right after the firewall. I'm just trying
Yep,
to wrap my head around the architecture because I'm ignorant, bro, to be honest, on a lot of this stuff. So I'm trying to figure out, just learn and go do some research and see if I can help you out with something or, come up with some dumb questions. But sometimes the dumb questions help give us to the right answers.
absolutely. Simplicity is the way to complexity,
Right? It's kind of wild. Got to be a little dumb before you go forward. But let me
right?
see.
There's some stumbles along the way for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know, did you ever actually, I know you have access to the folders. Did you ever look at any of the results or responses from the surveys?
I have not had a chance yet. I've
Do some.
had a few things going on the past weekend.
So for those who are unaware, Builders Club, we have homework assignments, and we're kind of already leading into week two, but part of week one was we were supposed to like, I guess, find our kind of customer base, and we were just kind of looking at building surveys on problems that we might see in the Web3. That was one thing they were wanting us to identify. Uh, so I built one of Brown DAOs because coming from the XRPO, we're kind of fresh into that, and there's a big demand for DAOs. So I think I got 13 responses, Nick. And I think you're gonna think some of these results are interesting. So for one, the biggest issue that most of these people have is what would you think is the biggest issue, Nick? Any
For
idea?
the
For just
for
for
the
DAOs in
DAOs,
general. Yes, sir.
well, the public side of things on their
Well,
vote.
really, yeah, well, pretty much it's just getting people to vote. And I think that's kind of a big issue for a lot of things. Like, wouldn't you agree? Like, even for like cities, like how many people often really come out and vote,
Not too many people.
right? Like, when's the last time you voted, bro? Like, not to put you on blast. I can tell you, it's been a minute for me. I think I just did the election and that's it. I don't think I've done any locals or anything like that.
That'd be the same for me.
Right, dude. So How do
I
you get
mean,
people
with how
excited for that? That's
I
kind of a
agree, it's almost like people have more access to a cell phone these days than an ID.
no, for sure. But another interesting thing that the survey showed up was that some of these people were spending legal clarity is another thing that people are really kind of concerned about, which makes sense, right? How do you run a pretty much a almost like a business, but that's not based anywhere? Like, how's that even work legally? Uh, but a lot of things I did see is that a lot of people spent upwards between like 100K to like 500K just to get their DAO started. So just right there, dude, that's that's a, I see that's a potential, right? That might be a potential mark.
Absolutely.
Wow. I was like, damn, like, can you imagine just trying? I can't even afford 100K right now. So, or
Yeah,
maybe there might,
startup costs.
yeah, for sure, dude, right? And I think a lot of that will have to be with just legality, right? Of it. They're probably most of that will probably be in lawyer fees, just wasting money on lawyers trying to figure out how to actually get that. I guess aggregation of all state laws as well would be something to look into
Yeah, you got
for
to start
DAOs.
with a framework, like almost go start it as small as possible and go build it out from a local standpoint, and then try to scale it from there. That way you can stick within the parameters of like that law and then scale it, because it's almost like once you get to the state level, it's comparable from like one state to another. It's like tiny tweaks from here to there.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I mean, thankfully we know some people. I kind of want to pick Spy's brain. She's a friend of the Builders Club, and we all know her. And she's I forgot what state was it. Was it Wyoming or Idaho where she filed the first LLC DAO?
I
I think
think it
it
was, yeah,
was
Wyoming.
right. That's which is dope, right? First in the she's technically made history right there. I think that's dope.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Speaking of complexity with an app, there is possibility of integrating like a firewall in there, so you can block just like sports betting. If you've ever
Yeah,
used some of those apps, if you go to different states and try to connect, it'll tell you you can't work this application due to your location. The state laws don't allow it.
yeah, that's for sure, right? Like, damn it. So how would you
You'd block, at least from my standpoint, I could think of it. You would block it by IP addresses, because you can block out. You just reach out to like the internet provider, find out who's in that area, what IP blocks they utilize, and then just block them.
mm. Another thing I kind of want to look into, bro, because give me a second. Because as we're getting more into the AI surveillance state, is there a way we could prevent AIs, from gathering data on us? Like just like you were saying, how we could block them, like block people domain. Can we block people from coming in or searching up people? Or how would you? Is that even possible?
I mean, I do think it's possible, but it's almost at that same. You almost have to stop it at their. If you want to really do something about it, you almost want to create it and then stop it at like the router level. Everybody's home has a router that has their access to their internal network.
Yeah,
And if you can protect it at the hardware level, and then anything behind that is then capable of, you know, at least keeping your data private from that standpoint. Otherwise, you're handing out what you want to when you sign up
yeah,
for it.
right. When you go through your internet service provider, your ISP,
Yeah, because everything. I mean, the ISP has everything.
right?
They get it all. Everything you're doing, they see everything. Because
And
they They have your DNS records.
Okay,
So
interesting.
anytime you're on your internet and you hit anything, same thing with your cell phone provider. They have everything because anytime you have for any DNS lookup, it has to hit some server for relay.
Mm,
So
interesting.
and that centralization is where you have the issue because somebody has to hold the DNS records to translate it. If you decentralize DNS, then you have something else that we could talk about. If the data is actually, protected, but there might be some laws to that, or, they might want to pull some records for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of ways how we could, I guess, just protect everyday users because I don't think they realize how it's almost like there's a privacy war going on right now, and no one's
Mhm.
even aware of it. That our rights are just getting violated every day, and I don't want to sound like
I
I
don't
just
think people do miss it actually. At least in my neck of the woods, I've noticed a lot of people, even people that are older, they make literal jokes about the fact that they talk about it, and then not even like 2 minutes later in their feed, because a lot of people are still into Facebook, they'll see in their feed exactly what they talked about, right there, just right in their face, and it's like blatantly obvious to them anymore.
Mhm. No, for sure, right? It is wild, and I just, I guess if I think that's also a product right there in itself, if you could just find ways to bring more privacy to just people every day who are unaware of it, even I think that's a responsibility, because midnight gives it has the power, so it should at least be attempted, right? Like there's
I
some
agree.
sort of like there's some sort of layer there that even if people aren't aware of it, I think it's just part of being American citizen. Like we're all about freedom of speech, freedom of choice, and all that other good stuff. So uh, why can't just the freedom to digital privacy be just as important? Just
Completely
like
agree. I was just going to say, I honestly think that's why all this stuff is getting exposed, that is getting exposed in the global, landscape of things, even, locally in America at a slow pace, intentionally, but at the same time, ex- almost getting faster at the same rate, as time has gone on, just because of, I don't know, just from my perspective, it looks like things seem to be, kind of, exposing all that information that was just going to get exposed on the internet anyways with AI. I mean, it already ran out of public data like probably a year ago. So it's probably been reading private data for since at least 18 months simultaneously.
right. No, that makes sense. I just find it fascinating just because I see I see how government is trying to build out these data centers. And it's all really just for surveillance, really. They're not trying to, help benefit any of us at the moment. They're just trying to monitor us and create these systems. And um, I think the best thing we could do and a practical use case is going to be the digital privacy and us building out ways that could help prevent that. It's going to be, very detrimental or just, needed. And it's kind of cool that we're going to get to be the first ones to, at least attempt something at that, right?
Absolutely. I think it's, kind of innovating the future, but, hopefully protecting it.
Yeah, for sure. Because I don't want to be like cast into Stone Ages, and I don't want to be like these anti, which is kind of crazy that they're kind of already starting to paint people out as that the people that are making protests. Even though I am for AI, but if they don't want data centers in their area, then and they're coming out to vote. I think this goes back to us talking about voting that, they have the right to that. And that's totally fair. I'm not even against that.
I
In
completely agree. I don't think that, it's almost like the state level doesn't get their own decisions anymore. It's just whatever the federal government wants to do.
No, for sure, and that's where I'm like real passionate about is with DAOs. I think DAOs are going to be vital in that, and man, this could just go in so many directions because like you being a systems engineer, I've always wanted to, you know, uh, explore the ideas of mesh networks and networks that are not totally reliant on the internet. And like, say we were to build out our, say locally for one city, you were to build out your own little data center with its own AI agents, that have all this knowledge and are able to process it you know, and whatever sort of data you want that pertains to the city or, just for general education. Just like there's all this data that's open source and free. I think we should have banks almost, digital information banks for like if there's ever like we don't have an internet, but we have some sort of off-grid mesh network that, you know, that we could like maybe tap into and use, like, or just offer as a city initiative, like fund its own little, because I've seen people do that, right? It's capable of like Jack Dorsey's building that Bluetooth mesh social network, right? Um,
Yep.
what do you think about those ideas? Is that possible? Am I just reaching for straws here?
No, I think it's totally possible, especially with it goes back to like the early days of PCs, just utilizing those mesh networks to what we're seeing today. Um, Blockchain kind of throws it back to that, just at a more higher level. What we're seeing here is kind of that next level in that iOS model um, that you'll see, just kind of building up to kind of like that shift or what do they always keep saying, the global reset, if you will. I think of it more of a growth though, because what we can see capable of this is as long as we put the laws in place, we could absolutely have those DAOs localized within each server. I mean, you don't need to incentivize it like Ripple does. You could just have, I mean, the incentive is the fact that you pay your local taxes. It goes to a DAO. That DAO then turns around and pays for whatever you guys then vote on locally. I don't think that's too hard to ask. I mean, um,
Yeah, we're
hell,
automating. We're
I would,
automating all that because I've my city council does kind of like we have a city council member boards, proposals come, and then those guys vote, and then proposals get passed. And a lot of people are kind of getting fed up with how money's being spent. And I feel like what you just described is essentially, what we actually want to get built out. Something that's more public, open, transparent. Um, ZKs like and privacy are just there you know, when needed as well. We're not. I think building in public's important, but also, this we had a great meeting today, and with Nick, he's uh he's with Midnight, and he just pretty much discussed how privacy needs to be kind of our base layer, though, right? So maybe I need to switch my perspective a bit more on that regards. But I do think, for voting, I don't think votes should be public. No one should know who you vote for. So that's where
I
I
agree.
think Midnight, helps strengthen those DAOs because we're just essentially Ethereum and like Polygon. I think they're all still, you can see who you voted for, which makes sense, but like it's not really kind of like the system we have in place, like when we're doing like votes for elections, they can see
Yeah.
what pretty much, I guess, if you're a registered Republican or Democrat, but they don't really know who you vote for, so to say.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like I could see, so for instance, like your DAO idea, I think would be perfect because of the fact that, so say you have the local government, they're running you set up the proof server. It's just a server It's local. It connects us to the database that has, your local information, so it can verify you are who you say you are at the DApp level. So they connect at their DApp, they keep their local data. It says you sign in. It says, are you this person? They send it back, yes or no. In order for so it's like that mesh network. The mesh being the center of the servers that have the information at the node level with the proof server connected to the SQL. So they're running the DApp right off their phone. Um, and that within that DApp, that's just where you'd have to almost have that pointing layer. So each individual server would then have connected to each different local database.
Mm, mm. Now,
So
but that's
so it
interesting though.
keeps centralize it to the local.
Yeah, but like I feel like kind of like we have a library, right? If
Mm-hmm.
something was to ever go down, a backup network, if main communication systems ever was to go out, just seems vital, right? Something that's like kind of hardwired in, right? You don't want to like, I'm sure most government systems have some sort of offline system, communication system, but like
Mm-hmm.
that should also be kind of public, I think, just in case if there's ever other emergencies or just for gathering data, just like we have libraries to be able to tap into a network just because you know uh you don't have that resource, because internet is starting to get a bit expensive too,
Oh
and
yeah,
so like
absolutely.
just for like some kids to just be able to like, hey, sign into this local network, um and just because it's local and free doesn't mean you're like, we're gathering your data or anything like that. We're trying to help prevent that as well. So I think that'd be a really cool project to be built out in the future, some sort of off-grid
Mm-hmm.
mesh or off network. There's so many facets to that, right? First, we got I guess, the offline data, the database, right? That's kind of guarded by the proof server, so to
Mm-hmm.
say, right? So, like, if people were just to like, you have all that data, you have your own local proof server, and people try to search up, I think you could generate the proofs just from the searches, you right? And their DNS and who's looking it up. You could gather all that data and you know hide it behind a proof server. Which if there's ever a law that requires or like if the I think selective disclosure is important for if you're ever like I guess investigating a crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at what point do you draw that? Where do you draw that line at? At where's that I guess line in the sand, so to say? Like, is it always 100% privacy, or if it's like a national security threat, do we allow them to look, right?
So it's almost like there's a few caveats to that because the president does need to know information, for instance, that you and I don't need to know, um,
Yeah.
because there's things that you know we're going to go do our day-to-day thing, but what are anything we have to say going to affect whether or not he does what he needs to do? We put him there for a reason. So it's in my personal perspective, it's like there's just some information that's not needed, kind of like why does the CEO need to know this information in the private sector versus this? I don't think the public sector is too different outside of national security type things. Because if it's too public, then your adversaries know everything that you're doing too, which is
Mhm.
definitely not the art of war.
That is very true, right? So I wonder if our government has to have thought of that, right? As well. Like, yes, they're probably surveilling us, but in doing so, don't they think that has opened the doors or at least the windows for others to look at, right? I never even thought of that perspective as well. That's super cool. So it's almost like, yeah, now we actually have to like we gotta think about our outside because yeah, warfare is gonna get more advanced. Well, now that we have AI agents and they're able to do most of these things, you could. I imagine so. There's some out there that have no guardrails, and they're pretty much taught how to do nefarious things, and you could just send those out and have it take down entire, electric grid systems because it's all open. There's no security because no one ever pays attention to that stuff. Kind of makes
Yeah,
kind of changes the perspective on things, dude.
absolutely. I think that's why a lot of things actually are even going on with the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of those data cables run through the waters down there. You cut that, a lot of stuff goes down simultaneously. And what's the only thing that still connects the rest of the world is blockchain.
Hmm. Ah, dude, when that's gonna be insane. Hopefully, we never get to that point, but it will be nice to, at least have some fallback systems, which just kind of just seems like we should just be part of.
I think it's almost
ju-
necessary, environmental wise, even. If you
I
can
think
only run, if you could take down a lot of those electrical things running down through the sea and stuff, you save so much more money. I mean, it's just a matter of getting enough, I guess, servers or data centers enough running around the globe so that it doesn't go down. So that if there's enough backup systems, so the infrastructure is like almost there, I'd say, like globally, because the actual like hardware wise, with all those pipes going under, you connect the world up with like different VPNs and servers or even satellites at this point with friggin' Elon's project. If you encapsulate the entire world with all these different satellites up there in the low orbit that he's doing, he's almost proven his theory with all those. If once he achieves enough low orbit satellites, it's internet across the entire globe.
interesting. Damn.
You don't even need the hardware on the floor, except even same thing with data centers. If you push them all to the low orbit, they're going to be colder up there, so I don't have to worry about heat too much. The only other thing that like I think my concern would be is like, okay, well, what does that do to the atmosphere with all those running up there? Does it
Mm,
does it affect our weather?
interesting. And what about like if they crash into each other? Debris. How's that gonna affect? Where is he liable if this
You
shit
almost
comes crashing in? If it comes crashing
absolutely
into my house, and annihilates me or my family dog. You
right.
know.
If Elon's listening, he can start another wing in the next 5 to 10 years when we get there for a like cleanup company specifically made to clean up the debris and then reuse the parts for new space shuttles because that'll be the new thing. Reuse these old parts and satellites that blow up and we're gonna have to reuse it now.
Dude, if we get any, we're gonna recycle them and throw proof servers in them and throw them up in there.
I'm in.
He's got proof server satellites. You think Elon will be down?
I think he'd
That
be
would be
down.
pretty cool, right? I wonder if Charles would facilitate that. He probably has thought about it or he talked to him, right? Like, hey, Elon, can we do a proof server in space? Like, I would ask
Right?
him if I was friends with this fool. I'd be like, dude, come on, bro, hook me up.
Yeah. I mean, look at what he's done with Tesla. I mean, the operating system, he's made a unified, like, proprietary system because he builds it. He has the operating system. He has the GPUs. He's designed the whole company designs everything itself. So it's like sets the standard for what it wants to sell for it because it designs everything from the hardware to the operating system.
So is it ran by AI now?
I don't know if he has completely gone AI, but it's got to have at some level if it has that driving assistance.
Hmm. Dude, and this is a great topic, and like it could even branch, like we're branching off even just from the DAOs because like what happens when an idea I've been playing with is like AIs are managing a DAO itself. Is that possible? Like what would happen?
I think it's totally possible if you, it's just like one of those things you almost have to, like the forefathers before us, like when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, like you don't have to write like specific parameters, and only certain people have X, Y, and Z permissions to ever change it. Kind of like Bill of Rights, same thing, like almost like a congressional thing that would have to X, Y, and Z votes have to override for any kind of rule change within the DAO
Right. No,
outside of AI.
and that's insane, dude, to think about. Just because, like, what if someone didn't do any of that stuff and they just kind of said, "Hey, here's a DAO, and any AI model could connect to it and create proposals and vote." What happens? And even let them manage a treasury. What do you think the end result will be with that?
Honestly, that's a heavily big concern with everything where we're at right now. It's like we're
Hmm.
at an open playing field with everything. I mean, look, we had what a couple of years ago, some 14, 15-year-old kid turn around and make an app based off of some Congress people, out betting even Warren Buffett within the stock market. Like, come on, you're outperforming the best investor in history. That doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, for sure, dude. Did you see when that one congressman went up there and was saying that they should allow them to do it because they only get paid like 180,000 a year or something like that?
Yeah, something
And then
wild. Like, what?
and these
You
fools
guys
and these
barely
fools,
work.
right? Yeah, they barely even work more than half a year. So it's like, what are you guys doing? What are y'all talking about? While everyday people are struggling making less, like, almost 2 to 3 less times than that, or a lot less, and they expect them to survive, not have no government benefits, no food stamps, nothing, So it's kind of wild to think that that's what our congressmen, uh, you know, think that, that if they can't live off of that sort of salary and they haven't raised minimum wage since, 2000s, how do they expect people to survive nowadays?
I honestly, like when it comes to the human mind, it's almost like people want to have that oppression. They don't want to teach. They want to
Mhm.
oppress. It's almost like an ego thing or something. I don't know. I don't know. It's something, man. It's something when if you want to lead, I think you lead with the right ways and the right tools. Um, kind of rally people around what you're trying to do, and it kind of shows when certain people take charge within a state. You can kind of tell what direction things are going within those 4 or 8 years.
Yeah, I think that's just fascinating too, bro. Just what areas that like the DAOs can go to, because I think if, for example, we were to ever hit a universal, basic income, which Elon even talks about high universal basic income, which doesn't seem any way possible, just because if everyone has high, then everyone's poor, right?
So I think
So to say.
when in my mind how that would operate is so with what he's openly said about these robots and everybody having basically a personal chef, a personal um, doctor right in their house with these bots. Um, and we've heard kind of in the riddles about XRP, level playing field always being kind of the term played around. And I think that's very possible because it turns back to even the philosopher Alan Watts, where he mentioned that we technologically were capable of having um, autonomous, governance or bots that kind of made money with us making a universal basic income. However, like what would be our purpose or what would make us go? I don't think we were there spiritually yet back in the 70s for us to kind of like get where we are now, almost
Mm.
in a sense of like I think mentally as a species we're becoming more open to higher thoughts.
Right. No, that is very true because if you think about it, like would people back then have been kind of open-minded? Because like you were talking about when you were discussing doing this bill club with us with and your uncle, which he has a very valid point because again, we are just strangers on the internet, right? But he's like, how do you know these people? Why are you gonna go with these guys? But we lit people back then just don't really kind of have that mindset of like, well, that's kind of just how things are nowadays, right? Like me and you don't know each other, we've never met, but yet we have very similar interests and we want to build very similar things. So we're kind of helping each other and also guiding each other, sort of say, right? And just sharing each other because back then it was always, you create something, you hide it, you patent it, you put a copyright on it, right? You go get behind all these lawyers and all that stuff. Whereas our generation, we open source things, we put our information out. We're kind of more, you know, I guess, like you say, spiritually aligned and also technologically aligned at the same time, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
So like
absolutely.
we're playing with all these, you know, kind of like what the forefathers did. They were like, because a democracy is very different from where they came from. So to create this whole new system of voting and like creating laws and stuff is essentially what a DAO is almost, right? About proposals and voting and stuff like that.
Yeah, because it was just agreed upon discussion. How should the civil, society go about actually giving a level chance to, this person or that person in a civil manner to have, you know, disagreements or issuance of some kind of payment or um, punishment, if you will.
Hmm. Interesting. And well, and I think that's a beautiful thing, I'm building a gaming DAO. You wanna you're going to be able to I think we haven't really locked in what idea you want to lock in for sure. Would you say that's fair, or do you think you kind of have a more general idea of what you want to do now?
Yeah, I think I do have a more of a general idea. I think I still want to go with the AI tournament. Um, just kind of generate that, kind of going with AI and building out what we could for kind of more of a decentralized future in gaming. Um, I'd like to even see you see so many gamers. I mean, I think gamers have a right to their value just as much as you and I as professionals. And I think a lot of these people that do put a lot of their earned money into a game should continue to have the same value without it falling through the floor. We've seen it countless times for gamers where they put their life into a game and then $1 million turns into what, 50K, some of these online games.
Mm, that's true, right? Very true,
You put
especially
it
like
back it
the
with an
Counter-Strike
NFT or a
skins, right?
DAO. Yeah, exactly.
No, for sure. And like, there's no corrupt CEO of the esports league, hogging money or anything. All the funds could just constantly be rolled into new tournaments, um, help sponsoring new talent to come out and play, uh, hardware for the underprivileged. There's just so many different areas you could go with that, with a DAO on top of that as well. And I think it's just, you
Absolutely.
know, the evolution of things. I think we're going to have centralized, for every centralized equivalent, there's going to be a decentralized equivalent, right? And I think the with capitalism and just with what the world decides, we're going to get the winners and losers of that choice, right? Um, I just think that I think there's also going to be like the need for the privacy layer, and I think we should be approaching our government officials as, how can we get these projects, these DAOs involved? Because a big demand is always uh, you know, getting these funds to where they needed to actually be. Um, and maybe we could
Oh
create some
yeah,
sort
even
of
in city
incentivized.
limits for council.
Yeah,
Um, I think that's a good point. It almost stops lobbyism as well because it's like um, people turning in and trying to vote, and they're afraid to vote for this or that based on what everybody sees.
no, that's true. I didn't think about stopping lobbyism, and which is actually a good way to help infiltrate democracy. You could just be a government entity and just be like a foreign government entity, and that's paying lobbyists to help, just stir some shit up. Sometimes that is good in itself, right? Who knows? Like for some of those data centers that got built out, like how many of those council people you think they got paid, to help pass it?
There may have been a few foundations that are in their name.
Right? That's very true, and that sucks that just a handful of the few get to be uh make the decision for vast majority. And I hope the people who pay attention to who voted for what, and y'all go get y'all's voices heard, because uh that's just not right. Y'all have a vote, and y'all should go do it. And but like on top of that, like, don't you think people we should incentivize people to vote? Where do you think that is the because like David Schwartz, he always said the best incentive is no incentive, right? Do you agree with that? Do you think, you know, me and you, we could go build something and just collect all this data and sell out if we wanted to, right? So, but why would we want to do that? So, in a sense, we're kind of in that philosophy, I guess. No incentive is the best incentive, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I do like the platform and the idea of doing it that way. I think the only problem is that attention spans have gotten too small.
Mm. No, they definitely have, brother. They definitely have. Me and my wife were discussing this the other day. You know, just the media is different. Um, she was watching me watch some old game, and we were just discussing how things are just different. Back then, games I felt like had a lot of heart, a lot of soul into them. They just, they had their own vibes. They were different. And nowadays, everything's about loot boxes and you know quick gameplay. Everyone brain rots, and there's really no depth to a lot of this stuff. Um, but it is interesting, and I don't know. I think these are layers that we're gonna be exploring later. And the further we get along with this build club, like who knows what new data we're gonna stumble upon.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited
But
to see it. I mean, we're gonna grow this thing out, see more stuff, and hopefully protect more people.
no, that's for sure, dude. And just build stuff that me and you are passionate about. I want to help you out with your journey as well. And I do see us crossing paths in a lot of ways, just because like very similar interests, very similar passions. It's probably why Island connected us. Which I was thinking, if you don't mind, because we're gonna do episode a week, right? Um, roughly about 45 minutes to an hour, right? Uh, and we're gonna do the 8 episodes, and at the end of this, I'd like to do episode 9, where we invite the person that got us here, and you know give her flowers, because she kind of helped us get to this point, even though she could be a pain in our butts. And what do you think about that?
I think it'd be awesome. It'd be a great idea just to kind of reflect and kind of bring on the person that kind of mentored us into it all.
Oh, for sure. We're not gonna say too much. We're gonna just drop hints, right? That's what I was thinking. It'll be fun. And then on episode 9, we'll introduce our sort of mentor, so to say. But this is gonna be a great journey, dude. I'm really excited. Yeah, dude. I've been so excited lately, to be honest, just being part of all this. I haven't been able to sleep.
Me too. It's been insane. It's like, ah, man, what do I do? Where do I start? I want to constantly just compact and ship dApps, but I got to work.
Nah, I get you, brother. I get you. But luckily, right now they're not worried about that. I think right now it's just getting the basics, like that survey out,
Mm.
and then getting the results from the survey, and then just compounding it and seeing what you need to do from there. Whereas, I'm pretty got product signal, and I've just been itching. I've been holding myself off until after our meetings tomorrow, and then I'm gonna decide if I should go build it out. But I'll update you. I'll save that for next week, and we'll definitely follow up from there and see what happens. But um, any last words, Nick? You want to mention before I shut it down here?
Honestly, just make sure you get out there to your local government and make sure we're protected. Push the privacy. That's the big one I would get out there.
Oh, for sure. And I think just getting involved is probably the very first step. Just seeing what your city's doing, going out there, and just letting your voice be heard. Most of these cities have a little I guess a little window where they let citizens go out and talk. And if you just want to go talk shit, go do. You should, you know, let them know that you're unhappy with the way they're running their city. And, I think that's important. But yeah, as for myself, you know, um, you can follow me on X. We'll be updating. I don't even think when I end the show, dude, give me like 5 minutes after and we'll discuss the name for it. But yeah, we kind of just chopped this up really quickly, but this is kind of how I would like the format, if you don't mind. We'll just sit here, we'll discuss midnight, what our homework was, and just our updated progress on where we're going with this.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, documenting it kind of gets the progress going.
No, for sure. And we're going to be getting our attention for midnight. So yeah, let's do it, bro. It's actually here. But until next time, everyone, thank y'all for joining, and see y'all later.